Hello and welcome back to What's News, aka the Trump Watch. I'm J77 along with guest host James Daniel Walsh of Matic Expression. And we got a couple of stories we're going to be talking about. Yes, we have to talk about Trump again, but not the whole entire segment like I said last week. Hopefully, you guys will also share in your thoughts as always through Twitter or through the comment section below. But before we get that, um, great to have you part of the show. I'm James. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
All right. Basically, I might as well just ask you this question. It's been 2.5 months. How are you coping with the Pope Trump apocalypse?
Well, every day is a fresh new embarrassment as an American. Uh, but it's also, I mean, it's at the same time. And I guess this is appropriate. It maybe feels like a reality show. It feels like you know, I mean, there's never an episode of a reality show where there isn't some drama. Someone has a hissy fit. Someone calls out somebody else. So I mean, it's appropriate considering that our president is a reality show personality, and he has a reality show presidency.
Well, is it good for the country? That's the thing. I mean, because like I said, I had a feeling, and you're right what you're saying about the reality mentality of how he's running it. But there's only so much you can go for before you have to show real leadership. And look, I don't like to look at numbers in the first month and a half. I like to wait 6 months, or like they always say, the first 100 days. But my goodness, it hasn't been the craziest 45 days I have ever seen any president have ever in my existence in this world. I don't know about you. You probably went through more presidents than I have, but I never seen the president get off to such a crazy start like he has.
Well, when you look back and you start to think, Bush and Cheney weren't really so bad. You know that you've crossed into a weird reality that I mean, it's just and watching too. I don't know if it's what it was the speech that he gave this past week. What it was that made the media just oh look, he's suddenly become presidential. No, he was able to read off of a teleprompter and
There you
not
go.
start a Twitter fight for an hour.
Yeah, and
And
that's the key. And you bring up a very good key word here. It was a controlled press conference. He was reading something. It wasn't like he wrote it. Somebody wrote it for him. Say, "But this, please don't go over the line, and pray that you look good by doing it." And you see the difference when he actually have a professional writer write his speeches for him versus just him going off the edge and making him look like a total fool. Just like he did this morning, where he's accusing Obama of wiretapping the White House, even though there's no proof showing that, which seem to be his mo these days.
well, I think his strategy really is he knows that the people that support him will believe anything he says, and he knows that the rest of us won't believe anything that comes out of his mouth. So he is only playing to his base, and that's it. And that's I mean, we'll see how that works out for him as midterm elections come and eventually 2020. Hopefully, we don't have to wait that long.
Well, he's already campaigning for 2020. That's the funny thing.
I said to my girlfriend after the first week, I said, this cannot possibly sustain itself. There's no way that this can be 4 years. Um, I mean, and yet at the same time, I can't imagine anybody. I don't imagine the Republicans impeaching him. I don't think the Democrats have the spine. So,
What they're going to impeach him based on what, though? That's the whole thing. I mean, me and my uncle have been saying about impeachment, and I'm like, he hasn't done something extremely stupid to
well, I
have
think
the country impeach him.
the Russia thing is going to turn out to be something pretty stupid. The Russia thing is going to turn out to be something I think pretty impeachable. Um, it's just a matter of, again, I mean, the guy has proven. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about this guy that he's just bulletproof. I mean, if anybody else said the things he said, did the things he did, they would have been disqualified immediately. And yet somehow he has insulted the troops, he has insulted Israel, he has insulted every group that you're not allowed to insult. And he keeps on going.
Well, to me, I got a few theories on that. One, money.
Yeah.
Two, it's intimidation towards the party. And three, the party is so desperate for power that they're willing to go along with it just as long as they hang on to power. And and I'll tell you right now, the 2 years that we had with the Republicans in Congress and in the Senate, if they don't show progress or things gets worse in the 2 years that they're in power, the voters gonna let them know about it. That's the only reason why Obamacare hasn't been appealed just yet, and it probably won't be appealed for at least another year until they have something that is replaceable, which they don't have right now.
Mhm. Well, and I think really that and again, this wouldn't fly if it was Hillary in the White House or if it was anybody else in the White House, but you're going to hear Trump saying for the next 4 years, "Oh, I inherited a mess. This is all Obama's fault. Everything's Obama's fault. This isn't my fault. I didn't do this. This is because of Obama." It will, I mean, he's gonna play that card for as long as he can.
And like I said, there's a couple of articles they'll show that you can only play it for so long before everything goes back on you. Just like what they did with him with Bush, with Obama, when he had a problem with Bush. Trump's going to have to deal with the situation in hand. He claimed it's a mess. I don't see how we was worse off than we are. In my opinion, you don't be ranked number 15 as president of the United States and did something terribly wrong. He actually did something right. Now it's Trump's turn to move us forward. If he moves us backwards, I don't care how much money he has. He will be a one-term president and probably one else the worst president. I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I really am. I really don't want this to be that. I don't need a bad president that's going to lead us backwards into financial ruins or whatever policy he can do that will make us worse, not only here in this country but internationally.
Well, internationally, I mean, he's made us a joke. I mean, whatever you want to say about Obama, and I've got my own problems with Obama because I think I'm more liberal than he was.
And he was a moderate.
I think that he wasn't. I was expecting a lot more hope and change than I got. But anyway, my point being though, when you see Obama talk, when you hear him give a speech, you can't help but I mean, after 8 years of Bush, I was like, oh, I'm not embarrassed anymore. It's not humiliating when our president opens his mouth. He can. And all the things that he did that everybody criticized him for. Oh, he bowed, when he went to Japan, or he, apologized to some world leader for something, whatever. It was all things that I went, oh, thank God we've got a president that actually can just be civil and respectful and not and yet again, Bush was an embarrassment, but to see. Compare him to Trump, there's no comparison. I mean, Bush did his best diplomatically. He would go, he would observe customs, he would, be respectful as much as he could. Trump just, it's
my way or the highway routine he's doing.
Yeah, and it's
that never works when it comes to international issues. No, it never works.
And really, I think that what will ultimately be Trump's undoing, if there is an undoing to be had, is if he really does screw up the economy in a way that hurts the 1%. If he does that, and then the donors can turn around and they can say to their Republicans that they own, get rid of this guy. But that's going to be, and unfortunately, that's a bit. If the economy tanks enough to hurt the 1%, it's going to hurt everybody else a whole lot more. So,
well, we already see some of the effects of some of the things that has happened that I gave you the article for, so we're going to get right to it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go right straight to the first, and I wanted to ask your opinion on this, because I actually brought this out. This was something talked about. You already know about the situation with the borders and, the travel ban, and it backfired spectacularly on him to the point where he's not even trying to go to suit to appeals court, to the Supreme Court, because he knows there's a great chance that he's going to get shot down because the way he worded, the way it was presented. And let's be honest, he just did it out of the fly. He didn't even give a chance to do some critical thinkings of how this can affect everyone, whether you even live in this country or not. He was supposed to give us a second executive order on that, but that didn't happen. And this is goes far beyond the borderline as well. In the article that I have that I have been following, this has been recent. It also goes as far as the borderlines on U.S. Mexico. Now, this has just recently been popped up today, about 14 hours ago. Trump administration is considering separating women and children at the U.S. Mexico borders. Now, the women and children crossing together illegally to the United States could be separated by the U.S. authorities under a proposal being considered by the Department of Homeland Security, according to three government officials. Part of the reason for this proposal is to deter mothers from immigrating to the United States with their children, said a official who has been briefed on the proposal. The policy shift would allow the government to keep parents in custody while they um, contest deportation or wait for asylum hearing. Children will be put into protected custody with the Department of Health and Human Services in uh, least I'm sorry, retrieving, settling, while under they can be taken into care of U.S. relatives in the state-sponsored guidelines. What's your feeling on this?
Uh, well,
Not too good. It doesn't sound like.
I mean, it's, I mean, the fact that immigration is being touted as this thing. I mean, which really his very first press conference when he announced he was running for president. Oh, they're not sending us our best. They're sending us rapists. They're sending us criminals. Um, that as I understood it from what the statistics said, we were at a net zero as far as illegal immigration. People were not crossing the border to get into America. They were crossing the border to get out. And we don't have a problem with illegal aliens in the way that, I mean, and I always go back to, I forget which state it is off the top of my head. I want to say North Carolina, but don't hold me to that, where they took a really hard stance on illegal immigration a few years ago. And
That's Arizona.
No, it's not Arizona. It was definitely in the South, where they basically made it impossible for anybody who was an illegal alien to work. And next thing you knew, the next year, all the farms were reporting.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it was one of those farm states. They actually called. I believe they called some of the senators saying, "Hey, you got to lay off, man. We can't. You're ruining our labor here."
Yeah, well, the thing too is, I mean, they say, well, they're taking jobs away from Americans. They're jobs Americans won't work. I mean,
not for $2.50, they won't.
And well, exactly. I mean, they won't work it for that amount of money. But even when you make it a living wage, a lot of Americans don't want to go pick strawberries. They don't want to go do those jobs. And the illegal aliens that come across the border, that get into this country, will do them. And you could either you get the job done or you don't. But it's the country that suffers when farms are. Can't make their quotas when there's crops literally rotting in the ground because there's nobody to pick them. So the fact that this is even being made a big deal at all is ridiculous. But the fact that the lengths to which he has gone, Trump, to again, to make us just, I mean, I've the Mexican government has had to reach out to people in the United States and say, and give them guidelines. This is what you do. This is what you need to do if this happens to you. People are afraid to leave their home. There are people trying to get into the country who are allowed to be here and get in. I mean, this is definitely. I mean, I look at this as being when it's 50, 60, 70 years from now. This is going to all be remembered in the same way as sort of Japanese internment and Trail of Tears and things like that. It's going to be a black mark on the.
We lost him. He was on the road and he was unhappy. I'm about to text him back, get him back over here. He was. Let me see if I can let him know to get back. Back through the link. I think that we just lost the link there. I just text him via through Skype. Kind of weird. He just zoomed right out. But he bringing up some very good points here. The aggressive moves that is happening in this administration in terms of the stuff they want to implement. Nothing is going to be positive that's going to be coming out of this, and you can only hope that in the end, because again, he wants to do another executive order. Eventually, he will, but he's being more careful as to doing it. He's not going to just throw it out there like he did before. He is aware it can be challenged and it can be aware it can be struck down. That's unconstitutional. There you are. There you are.
Where'd I leave off?
You were saying about the Taylor Trios, and the internet said nope.
All right.
Nice Ghostbuster shirt, by the way.
Huh? Oh,
nice
I'm on video now.
Yeah. You can turn it off if you want.
Okay, so how did you just gonna splice it together?
Don't worry about it. It's live, so some of the people are gonna see it. But that doesn't matter. Like I said, you said about the Trail of Tears. You said this could lead back to those the Japanese when it was actually being detained. China, yeah, Japanese. You feel this is the same way we're going, and do you feel about the this new proposal, which just came out of this came out of the news today? Is that sign that that things are going to get a lot more crazier with the immigration situation, as well as just travel ban all in general?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're talking about separating children from their parents. And again, I mean, this is the kind of thing where it would be comical if it wasn't for the fact that so many people are going to be hurt by this. The stories that we've seen so far of people trying to get into the country when the Muslim ban, which they don't want to call it that, but that's what it was in effect. I mean, I saw one just the other day that I hadn't heard of a little baby girl, 9 months old, from Iran, who needed an open heart surgery.
Yes.
She was denied entrance into the country from Iran because she's from Iran. And didn't matter that the grandparents were American citizens. It didn't matter that the paperwork was all in order. Didn't matter that it was a 9-month-old infant. They didn't want to let her in. And again, it just goes to show the sort of I think
they resolved it though, but the thing is that there's a lot of more at stake than just keeping people out because you think they're unsafe. There's a whole, and this country has been dealing with people who have serious medical condition that only the United States. I'm pretty sure other major countries too has it, but only they come here because the medical is the best they can get, and they have a much better chance, if not the only chance, of survival if they get their surgery and treatment here than they would if they stay in a country that it's not medically advanced as the United States is.
Well, and I mean, the travel ban was ridiculous. In, of course, the fact that the countries that were banned, there's never been a single instance of terrorism that has come out of any of those countries. Whereas other countries like Saudi Arabia, where actual terrorism has come from, there was no ban. But
and that was his downfall too, because a lot of people brought it up. Like, wait a minute, you banned these countries, but you didn't even ban these. Mm-hmm. One of them, I think, it is. Is it Saudi Arabia? We're suing.
Yeah, and
they wasn't even on the list because it was kind of strange. We had this big deal of suing them, and next thing you know, we're not even on the travel ban list, which is scratching everybody's heads.
Well, but we get oil from them, and
of course,
that's So and not only that, but Trump has hotels in Saudi Arabia.
Or he's not gonna mess up his own business,
Nope.
even though he's not supposed to be involved in that. But that's the whole thing about it. That's why what he's doing, it is not consistent, and it also shows why he cannot just throw another executive order without making sure that it's done right. And this is why he's taking his time. We should have took his time to begin with. Now we're seeing a lot of stuff. And the thing about this, I'm gonna read what it also says here. This is something very important that people need to read. Is that one of the paragraphs is that wow, because it's very important that people understand, especially when it comes to children and them dealing with deportation policies. Currently, families contesting deportation or applying for asylum are generally released from detention quickly and allowed to remain in the United States until their cases are resolved. A federal appeals court ruling bars prolonging child detention. Do you know why that was a big deal?
I would assume it was a big deal because it's the child detention part.
Yeah,
Because it's cruel and awful. I
yeah.
mean,
And the thing is, and people don't realize this, and I'm pretty sure when you're an illegal, you don't have the rights. As said, like they can't hold me in jail no longer than 40 hours if they suspect me of a crime. If they gotta charge me or let me go. Deportation centers are a whole different ball game. And when it comes to children, they had been cases where children was there for months, almost years.
mm,
That's that is inexcusable for a person to be held there. Especially when they was just been given a bag and say go over the country, have a better life there, only be detained for a year without any kind of resources to either fight or even know what the justice system really is in the United States. So this is something that I think people need to be very mindful when they say stuff like this. You gotta know what they actually mean and what the fine print actually says.
well, and it goes back to the way we treated Native Americans in this country all the way up till the very recent past of taking their children away from them and putting them in a system to raise them in a way to be really more white. And I wouldn't be shocked if that's exactly what I mean. These kids are going to have to get educations. They're going to have to take care of these kids. So it's again, it's making a problem that is not really that big a deal into something much more complicated and ultimately expensive for the American taxpayer than it needs to be.
Keep in mind, he's going to make the Mexico country build that wall,
Yeah.
if you believe that. But this is the thing that I think that is very important to understand and understand seriously what he's trying to do. He's throwing out a lot of stuff, and it's building on surprisingly on one specific group of people. He is so hell bent on delivering on one specific group of people, and everybody else is basically saying, "Yo, you do realize you're supposed to represent everybody, not just one specific group of people." But a lot of group of people wants to blame everybody else for their problems, except the person they should be looking at, and that's themselves. This is a bit of a proposal, guys. I don't know how far it's going to go. But then again, with the staff he has picked over the last few months, it wouldn't be surprised if he tries to pick a first draft and try to get this passed through the House of Representatives and the Senate. Only time will tell.
I mean, I would like to think that he won't get it passed, but I think right now Republicans they're playing ball with him until he becomes too toxic to support. They're gonna push through whatever stupid piece of legislation he wants.
Hmm. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic. How important, in your own opinion, James, is taxes in this country?
Well, it's one of the major things that keeps the country running. So I would say pretty important.
So, how much you say is too much of a tax cut?
Um, you know, the Republicans and their base like to talk about the good old days, referring back to the post-war World War II, late 1940s, 50s, early 1960s, when taxes were, I believe, in the high 80s. Um, that might be a bit too high, but I mean, there's got to be a middle ground between taxing people uh, out of taxing small businesses out of business and taxing people out of their homes and keeping the country running. Um, so I would say, I mean, and again, and it should be proportionate. I don't believe that the rich should be taxed more. I think that the rich should be taxed proportionate to what the rest of the country is taxed.
Okay. So here's my question: you think it should vary from state to state? You think that it should be looked at how big the state is, how much population is, how much jobs are developed versus unemployment? How would you actually look at the state? Because there's one state right now who, ever since this governor took over the office, their economy has been in serious trouble, and that's Kansas.
Yep. And he's now, as I understand it, he's the least popular governor in the country.
They reelected him twice, and he was not popular then. But there has been some interesting development that's happened, and right now, it looks like things are about to go ahead because right now they can't continue to cut taxes and not have any money to run the state. I think they've started realizing that. Um, this is this is the article that has been done. This is done by John Hanna from the Associated Press. He is a political writer, so you guys can check it out if you guys want. But it says here, a big tax increase for Kansas appeared invincible as the state wrestles with a budget problem that has left every Republican ready to roll back income tax cuts that are Governor Sam's rollback biggest policy legacy. So when the Republicans are ready to roll back tax cuts, you know you did something wrong.
Mm. Well, and
go ahead.
I'm from California and lived there most of my life, and I know what damage tax cuts can do when somebody goes too far with them. Because California was a state that was considered unrunnable, and then
That bad?
you got somebody in office who said, you know what we need to do? Raise some taxes. And all of a sudden, California is now one of the most, profiting states in the country.
Hey, you stole two football teams over there. It must be doing something right.
But with Kansas, I mean, you're right. I mean, the guy has run the state into the ground, and when you get to that point, like you said, when you get to that point where Republicans are like, yeah, okay, we maybe took the tax break a little too far. That because normally they'll stick to it until there isn't a penny left. But yeah, it's amazing to watch Republicans try and run it back.
Yeah. It says it continues here, and this has to do with schooling too. This is also very important. A Kansas Supreme Court ruling that the state isn't spending enough money on its public schools, only boosting many lawmakers' support for raising income tax. The state higher court district legislation has enacted a new school funding law by June 30th without setting a spending target, though figures lawmakers are calculating involves hundreds of millions of new dollars. That's not good when we don't have enough money to fund your schools.
No. No.
It says it says Democrat and moderate Republicans at the state house of Topeka already are looking at boosting income tax to close project budget shortfalls, totaling more than $1 billion through June of 2019 last month. They are pushing through a bill raising more than $1 billion over 2 years, only to see the conservative GOP vetoed it. Oh boy. They are preparing to try again with another income tax bill. So how long do you think this fight's going to continue?
Well, and he mentioned trying to raise taxes through cigarettes and things like that, which will help, but it's only going to go so far. I mean, what I've never understood from from the Republicans is this uh, the need to pretty much eliminate taxes in this country, and it's what I mean. Because there's I've heard of, like, there's in Kansas, they can't pave roads. There's roads that were paved, that have been paved for 70 years, and they're not paved anymore. They've broken apart and they can't afford to repair them. Um, I don't understand anybody. I mean, again, you're gonna. It's not going to be popular to raise taxes. It never is. It's never has been. But most people, if they are getting their money's worth out of the taxes that are being raised, are okay with it. They'll, if their schools are funded, if their kids can go to school, if the roads are paved, if everything runs on time and runs smoothly, they don't mind the taxes. So the again, I think that the Republicans, not just in Kansas but in the entire country, they're going to come to a certain point, and it's going to come soon, where they're going to have to just come to grips with, okay, we need to raise taxes. We can't cut anymore. Because every time you hear about anything that is proposed in this country, tax breaks inevitably is connected with it somehow. And,
Mhm.
at what point, when you've got corporations that are paying zero taxes, when you've got, and I'm sure a lot of people go, yeah, great, I don't want to pay taxes. Sure, they made 0% tax for everybody. Everything falls apart. So,
Mhm.
and Kansas is a perfect example of that. And it's one of the reasons why, again, this guy, maybe he was elected twice, but he's now the most unpopular governor in the country, because his state has fallen apart. People
This
do
par-
not like it when their kids' education gets messed with.
mhm. And it's also continues here. It is what it's one of the representatives said. This is absolutely a revenue problem that needs to be addressed, and it's in the income tax bracket. Say State Representative Melissa Rooker, a moderate Republican from Kansas City suburbs, that are home to one of the most strongest advocates for rolling back Brown's back policies. The lawmakers' course was largely set by. Election last year, voted frustrated with the budget problems, and ousted two dozens of term-limited governors allied from the legislation. If the GOP moderate and the Democrat votes together, they have a solid majority in both the House and the Senate. So this is a big problem. This ain't going away anytime soon. If Brownback wants to save any face, he needs to at least roll back some, because he cannot run that. He cannot run this time. This ain't just one little town. This is an entire state.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, and again, I mean, I don't understand the idea of him being that stubborn about it. I mean, other than just saying, again, at some point, I think if you go, okay, you know what, I may have taken this a little too far. If you own it, if if you maybe try and take charge a little bit and say, okay, this is what we're going to do to combat this problem, people will respect that. And what they're not going to respect is uh, trying to weasel your way out of it, and stick to your guns, and I think he's making a huge mistake, and I think he and Republicans in Kansas are definitely going to suffer for it.
Well, it says here that Brownback still promotes personal income tax cuts, ignited at his urging in 2012 and 2013 as a model pro-growth policy for other states in the U.S. government to accumulate. He blames the state budget woes on slumps and in architectural. Actual, I think it's I don't know what this is. It's AGRICULTUER. What is I
Uh,
and it, you don't even know. But it's saying it's something to do with energy production. Yet even conservatives are breaking with the government on some issues. Secretary of State Chris Corbett policies criticized Brownback's plan to increase business filing fees, saying it will make them the highest in the nation, leaving Kansas less competitive. Again, when moderate and conservatives are telling you, yo, you need to do something other than what you're doing right now because your plan ain't working, it's time to listen.
Mhm. I mean,
But
again, there's sticking to your guns, and then there's just, I mean, really, the what you have to, I think, what the real thing why he would stick to his guns is, uh, again, he's bought. You know, the corporations in Kansas came in and they said, "Hey, we want our tax breaks," and he comes back and goes, "Yeah, but we're okay. We're closing schools and stuff now because of this thing. We don't care. That's not our problem. We gave you contributions to your campaign. You give us tax breaks. That's how this works." And you know, it's shameful. It's absolutely shameful.
yeah, and one of the GOP monitors said that the voters saw fixing the budget as their first concern, and I can't really blame them. But again, this has been look. I don't really pay much mind to certain things like that in terms of other states, but when a governor vows that he's going to do this and do that, and not actually think about the overall consequences, leading to Kansas being a very hot topic every 3 days, you're doing something wrong. I shouldn't have to. I'm in New York City. I shouldn't have to hear about your problems every 3 days on the news.
Hmm.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, no, it's they've become, I think, a symbol of what's wrong in the overall country. Just this agenda of tax breaks that doesn't matter how much they hurt people. They're going to keep doing it.
Well, then they can't say that they're worried about the deficit.
Hmm.
I don't know how we're gonna move right on. You got any last words about this before we move on?
No, it's just
I think you said enough. All right. I don't know how much you follow New Jersey and the Bridgegate scandal.
another thing that I don't live in New Jersey, and yet it's hard to get away from that story.
Well, there has been some developing news 24 hours ago. I don't even know why they thought they was going to actually get this overthrown. But the two people responsible for the bridge gates, which go by Baroni and Kelly, had failed to actually get an appeal. Now, why they thought they was going to win the appeal when evidence was clearly on their that they did this is beyond me. But they actually did file an appeal, and they did was denied a motion. It says here in this article that I've got here, courtesy of Law Journal, Charles Tomnott. He had wrote in this article, a federal judge, Susan Witchen, of U.S. District Judge from the District of New Jersey, a federal judge had denied motion um, to throw out their conviction for their part in Bridgegate scandal by obstruction policies, motivation lane closures at the George Washington Bridge. Let me explain it more in my own words. There was a Chris Christie was running for re-election. He was pretty much on. He was pretty much had the popular vote on New Jersey, and it was hoping that one of the mayors would support him. He did not, and because he wouldn't support Chris Christie, they decided it was a good idea to shut down the bridge for not 1 but 3 days. This pretty much angered both New York, the Port Authority, both in New York and New Jersey, to the point where an investigation was happening. Now, Chris Christie had said from the very beginning that he had never knew this was going on, even though he always said he was a hands-on governor. Hands-on governor means you know what's going on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yet, for some reason, this has slipped his mind, which led to his popularity to sink to approval rating of 13%. I'm pretty sure that's not a good a rating. Don't you agree?
Well, considering
But
that, I mean, he was at one. If he had Chris Christie, if he had run for president in 2012,
he
instead,
probably would have gotten it.
he would have been the nominee, and he might have actually given Obama a run. But yeah, he waited one election too many.
And what makes it even ironic though is this has actually been, everybody said this has actually been the scandal that brought him down and kept him from actually winning, him coming close to winning any delegates in the primary. I disagree. There's a lot more to it, especially since I live close by to New Jersey. But that's neither here or there. The thing was that these two morons have done this, basically creating a very what could have been a serious tragedy by doing what they did, just to punish. Um, and its entire town because they wasn't Christine's voters. This became they lied first of all about what they have done, and it wasn't until all the stuff came out that this thing really hit the fan. Chris Christie went on a couple of hours of trying to explain himself why he didn't know what was going on and how he was disgusted and appalled. Well, the damage has already been done. Now these two has been convicted. The problem wasn't really much of their conviction; it's how they was convicted. It says here the seven count in. It says that Brian Kelly moved from a new trial for the judgment acquittal after the jury found him guilty on November 4th, 2016, on seven counts, including wire fraud, conspiracy to misapply public property, and conspiracy against civil rights. They have been found guilty of. But the U.S. District Judge Susan Wolf of the District of New Jersey denied a motion to rejecting the claim that the evidence was insignificant to convict him. Basically, saying that the evidence that they was using wasn't really the evidence that they should be using. A lot of this also to do the way that the judge has actually constructed the jury, because the jury have asked them a question and they felt that was not in the judge's right to do so. The defendant cited the statement attributing to the juries in a new article claimed that some juries continued to deliberating without the rest of the panel when Widget declares a break to the proceeding. But Widget says that the statement reflects the jury uh, presumption of the deliberation process, but provided no evidence that the jury ignored the court's instructions. The ruling was issued on Wednesday of the same day. They had postponed sentences. Defendant on March 15th is the attorney is scheduled Brendan to be scheduled for sentencing on 10:30 a.m. and Kelly at noon. So they're definitely going to be sentenced this month on the 15th. And to me, it's rightfully so. They have betrayed the trust of the American people. They have endangered the life of American people because, God forbid, somebody in an ambulance who may be rushed to the hospital couldn't get there because they chose to shut down the bridge just to stick it to a mayor. And it really it really brought you more questions of how far the government goes to stick it to a mayor or voters who didn't vote for them or didn't like them.
Hmm. Well, I'm pretty sure I heard there was somebody actually who was in an ambulance that day, and thankfully the ambulance was able to get them where they needed to go. But yeah, this was, not that there ever would have been any kind of an excuse for this kind of a stunt, but it was over a stupid vendetta for, and again, when you look at Chris Christie saying he didn't believe it, or he didn't authorize it. Chris Christie prides himself on being, a tough guy. He's, nobody messes with me. I'm from Jersey, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, this is exactly the kind of thing that Chris Christie would have authorized. This is exactly the kind of thing where they would have said to him, either they say to him, hey, what do you think about doing this? Or he says to them, I want to do this. Let's send a message that anybody who doesn't support me, is going to pay for it. And yeah, he should be in jail. Chris Christie should be in jail. The fact that this was not.
So you do believe he has more? He knew more than what he's letting on. It just there's no evidence that's there to prove it.
I think the evidence is out there. I think that, look, when it comes to taking down our leaders, like the highest ranked people, governors, and presidents, we're squeamish about doing it. Nobody wants to do it because you take down. I think it's one of the reasons why, if you look at the one time or the two times that impeachment has actually been a serious thing that's been looked at in this country, with Nixon and with Clinton. Clinton was impeached, and they were like, okay, we impeached him. Let's not kick him out though. Let's let him finish his term. Let's let him, And with Nixon, okay, we're going to have to impeach him. Let's just let him quit, and then Ford, you pardon him, because nobody wants to see a president in jail. Nobody wants to see the governor led away in handcuffs. It's bad for the morale of the state. It's not just bad for whichever party is associated with it. It's bad for politicians in general, because not all people distinguish between Republican and Democrat. So Democrats don't want to see a Republican locked up any more than they want to, anything, because it's bad for politicians in general. Nobody trusts politicians as it is. So I think they looked at Chris Christie and they said, okay, throw us some underlings. Just give us a couple people that we can make examples of, and then we will just stop looking. Or we'll ignore this evidence that we have. Because
sounds like a bribe to me. But
could be. I mean, there's again, it's ridiculous to think either he knew about it, or he's completely incompetent. He hired people, he had no control over them. That they would be able to pull a stunt like that and him not know anything about it is ridiculous.
Well, it is unfortunate that he did pay for it, because let's be honest, when it all push on the shove, when this thing came down, it opened the door to a lot of stuff that went wrong with his policies. Not able to pay for certain structures because he lowered taxes, transferring funds so that way he can actually balance the budget, which is something that came out. And this was just basically the ice on the cake. And let's be realistic, he may have been or was popular in New Jersey, but that kind of bully style mentality don't fly well with the rest of the country. And I think that add that with the fact that Trump just outflanked him, there's no other way to put it.
Yeah. Well, Trump really he outflanked all of them in that. I mean, Chris Christie in a lot of ways was the one he just embarrassed. I mean, it was almost because he not only like decimated the guy, but then he turned around, dangled the vice presidency in front of him. And,
we all knew that.
I felt to the point where I almost felt bad for Chris Christie, the way that he was just humiliated by Trump and used as a prop. And he goes he goes from I'm a New Jersey tough guy to yes, Mr. Trump, anything you say, Mr. Trump. I mean, it was embarrassing.
Not as much embarrassing what Giuliani have done. So
yeah, but Giuliani though is such a suck up and a sellout that
you put it so calmly.
He has no pride. There's no pride for Giuliani. Chris Christie, you could see Chris Christie. It looked painful. He's standing behind Donald Trump, and you could see him grimacing. You see him just sort of like, oh, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. With Giuliani, it's just like, whatever you need, as long as I'm on TV, I don't care.
Yeah, well, you've ticked off a lot of New Yorkers, that's for sure. But do you think, one thing I'm always kind of curious, do you think that Chris Christie has a future in politics down the road, or you think that this was pretty much, he's going to go quietly into the night?
I think he'll get big money from Fox News to be a correspondent. That's what's going to happen. He's not going to get reelected into anything. It's one of the things where it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. Politicians now, it used to be that they would just keep running forever. They would just keep, even Nixon after leaving the presidency was considering trying to get back into politics somehow. Now they just go and they work on Fox News. So
they're safe haven. Mm-hmm. Before I go to my local news, is there anything you want to share what's going on in Minnesota? And how's the lake effect weather over there?
Uh, Warm. Uh,
Wow.
I mean, it's now for me at least the third or fourth winter in a row where I can say, if you don't think that global warming is a real thing, come to Minnesota in the winter,
No,
because
no.
everybody, everybody who's not from here says, "Oh God, it must be cold up there." There's no snow on the ground right now. It's 45 degrees outside, and really around this time of year, it should be around 10. So,
Wow.
and we've got barely, this is again, it's at least the third winter in a row where we've gotten barely any snow. So,
Well, I know we had 70-degree weather in New York.
mm,
That's been messing me up because I've been up and down with the cold because of this weather change. But any interesting news that people should be aware of in Minnesota? Anything that's been going on big over there?
it's always nice to see the senator from my state, Al Franken, grilling uh, Trump's nominees and embarrassing them, and being one of the people to make sure that some of these guys don't get through. Um,
Um,
which I said, I would love to see personally. I don't think he's ready to run for president, but if you gave me in 2020 an Elizabeth Warren Al Franken ticket, um, I'll guarantee you a win over Trump by a pretty
I
strong
want
margin.
Elizabeth Warren to run the first time. I was surprised she didn't want to, but my uncle kept saying she can do better with the position she's in now than her running for president. I said, okay. But here's
Well,
the thing, though. Can we stop putting Hillary Clinton on the ticket, please?
oh God.
They talking about it already. I'm saying, are you really telling me that there is no strong Democrat out there that can run the 2020 ticket?
Well, and the thing too is, I caught some flack because I didn't vote for Hillary. I voted for Jill Stein, and I voted for
Okay.
Jill, and I got the, oh well, how do you feel, with your stupid little protest vote that didn't do anything except get Trump elected and blah 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 blah. I
Am I the only one? My uncle voted the Green the old family party. I know, which I never heard before
Yeah,
until 2 years ago. So
and
a lot of people did that. I think that, and look, it's just like what everybody was talking about. Nobody really trusts Hillary Clinton enough to give her a vote. She seemed to be playing
well,
the bottom line too much for them to say that she's going to represent the people.
I went back and forth with whether or not I would vote for Hillary, because I really felt like Bernie Sanders got robbed in the primary. But
A
what
lot of people did, and
what
that came back to haunt them.
yeah, what finally pushed me over the edge was I remember I was watching. I think Rachel Maddow was hosting not a debate between Hillary and Bernie, but like a town hall style. And Rachel Maddow said to Hillary Clinton, "So, are you going to reach out to the Bernie voters, the people who, I mean, you might, these people will help you win." And Hillary Clinton just starts laughing, and she
Oh,
says, "Rachel, I'm already winning." And I just went,
wait, when was this? I gotta find this on YouTube. She
"Yeah,
actually did that.
this was during the primaries. So it was one of the, again, it wasn't a debate because Bernie wasn't on the stage with her, but yeah, I mean, it was this sort of like, I don't
I
have to
remember
reach out to
this.
Bernie Sanders voters. I'm going to win with or without them, and they're going to have to vote for me because you're not going to vote for one of the Republicans." And I just thought, you know what, lady, I don't owe you
And
my vote.
that was exactly, and that's the thing that I when that happened. Look, when it happened, it took everybody by surprise that Trump won. But then again, I actually thought about it. I said, the Democrats really came overconfident, thinking it was in the bag. I was like, and I said this before, Reb. I said they thought there's no guarantee if you was going to win this. You have to earn your votes, and I felt that she really didn't earn a lot of people's votes. And let's be honest, what really hurt her really was she should have really started reaching out to the Bernie Sanders votes when it was reported. And I think we got a new leader now. I got to look up his name. When this lady, when it was said that she had decked the stack against Bernie Sanders from the very beginning, to the point where it was this old woman, she was forced to resign as the Democratic leader. She got booed out of Florida. That was, and rightfully so. When you start seeing that, it automatically brings mistrust and concerns to your party. And she didn't. And to me, she didn't do enough, in my opinion, to actually invade the trust that she's going to be the people's president.
No.
Neither did Trump, but here's the thing: people felt that Trump is not really a politician. I'd rather try him because I really don't think that the Clintons and then people said there was going to be more of a Bill Clinton than Hillary, for them to run again.
Well, it was a fair argument for people to make when people said, um, I don't know what Trump is going to do, but I know exactly what Hillary is going to do. That was a
Mm.
fair argument to make, and it was. Now, look, would I rather Hillary Clinton be president right now than over Donald Trump? Yeah, I would much rather it be Hillary Clinton. But at the same time, if it was Hillary Clinton, in the long run, I think that if people are really worked up by Trump, if people aren't complacent and just saying, well, no, it's okay, we got a Democrat, so everything's going to be fine. Maybe then next time you get a guy like Bernie Sanders gets through, he gets the nomination, he gets the win, and then we get actual change. I didn't want to vote for Hillary Clinton because I didn't want 4 more years of exactly the same thing where it's like, okay, we're going to take incremental little steps on the environment, on gun control, on all of these things that need to be taken care of right now. They don't, the time to, you know, kind of take these incremental little steps and, oh, well, maybe we can try to do this or that. No, we need to actually have a bold leader who's going to take steps to fix these problems. And Hillary Clinton was not that person.
Mhm. Well, right now, the way the Washington Post has been reading out these electors, I'm like, if you're basing it on donors, we're in trouble.
Mhm.
So that's not the president I want.
And that's
But
what during the primary, they were like, oh, look how much money Hillary is raising. Oh, look how much money she's raising. Who cares how much money she's raising? Why should we care how much money she's raising?
and it's an issue. I mean, it's an issue, and that's why I feel that if the Democrats, they got the moment I say they said, "Oh, we got a possibility to win the Senate," I said, "Yeah, okay, well, let's see what happened first." And when they lost that, and the House of Representatives, I saw Trump winning all of the South,
Mhm.
and then when they won Pennsylvania, Minnesota, and Detroit, I said, "Well, I guess he's on a new president."
Yeah.
Can't wait to see how these people are going to react to that. But
Well, and the thing too is, I mean, I was looking at that map all night long, and Minnesota, which is a solid blue state, and it did eventually turn blue, but it spent most of the night really purple. And
mhm.
I just remember thinking, oh man, if we're not just straight up blue, if we didn't just clobber him, then yeah, he's gonna win.
Yeah, and that was the whole thing. I think the swing states showed you need to work harder, and I think that's the whole thing. And look, a lot of people say this may be a wake up call to that the United States needs, to understand that the issues in this country is serious. Hopefully that is. I hope that's the case. But to me, it really also should show us a wake up call for both parties, because I can tell you right now, the Republicans don't want this guy's president. They
Yeah.
don't.
Well, I mean,
Let's
and
be real.
I have friends who live in the South, and I've talked to them, and I mean, the idea that unfortunately, you know, that we really are. We're not just a country divided in half. We're a country divided in 80 different ways, and these people who are living in southern states, Arizona or Texas or Utah, all of the conservative, all the red states, um, they really don't want progress. They absolutely do not want it, and or if they want things to go back, they keep saying we want our country back, we want our country back, without understanding that it's not just their country. But they don't want to live with the rest of us. They don't want to live with Muslims or Mexicans. Um, they don't want to live with liberals. There's lots of people out there who in these southern states who, if you walked around in an Obama shirt for the last 8 years, you'd be lucky if you didn't end up in a hospital. So I honestly don't know how to fix that. I don't know how you get that divide because you could have Bernie Sanders come in and fix everything, and the economy is great, and everything is wonderful, and people will hate him. People will, uh, you know, the way that they did with Obama. And like I said, I've got my problems with Obama, but the economy bounced back. Um, he took the deficit down. I mean, he did a good job in a lot of ways, and he never got any credit for it.
That's because they don't want to give him credit for it, and they still blame him for stuff like he's going in office. What are you talking about? And the thing about it is, like, look, I said like now he's out of office. I gave him a 51.
Mm.
All right, I felt that there were some things he came at the right time because we desperately need someone to stop the bleeding, was something that Bush unfortunately did not do, even though the writing was on the wall and he had a chance to do it because he didn't want to put policies in place, and because of that, when it came down to the election, that came back hard, which I believe that more than Sarah Palin cost John McCain the election right off the bat. Everybody want to say Sarah Palin, no. Look at how Wall Street collapsed and look at how he responded to that collapse and what he said before the collapse. And that was all you need to know. Because here's the thing, is trajectory, he was actually winning until that collapse happened.
Yeah.
So to me, he was the right guy at the right time. And I think there's some things that he did so wrong, a lot of things. We can talk about Obamacare to be blue in the face. I call it the Affordable Care Act. We can talk about how he caved into a lot of the Democratic pressure. We can talk about all that stuff. But the reality is, the one important thing he did well, and that is we didn't have an economic collapse under his watch. We didn't have any major corporate scandals that cost millions of people their jobs. He kept us there, and look, it's not perfect. But I always said to myself, it may take more than one. It may take two more presidents before we get to where we need to get. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. And if this guy messed it up, you know what? You can't blame Obama. He left us in a better state than where we were. It all falls on Trump.
Well, and when you say that too, I mean, it makes that it would have taken more than one president. I thought with Obama left office with a really high approval rating. I thought he's good. Whoever is the next Democrat is just going to walk into office because that's all they got to do is ride that love that Obama had, that people had for him, and any Republican is just going to walk, or any Democrat is going to walk right into office, and unless it's Hillary Clinton, and you give Hillary Clinton, who walks in, and everything that Obama was charismatic, Obama was personable. Hillary Clinton didn't have any personality. She had no clear agenda. She was just, no, it's my turn. I get to be president. It's my turn. And I think that just turned everybody off. I think everybody just looked at that and said, no, you don't get to be president just because you've been waiting to be president and you think it's your turn. I think if you had put in Bernie Sanders, if you'd even put in, oh God, I can't even remember the other few guys who were running for president as a Democrat. I think that
there was not many people.
Yeah, they might have won. They might have, because they were at least. You got the feeling that they cared about the country. Hillary Clinton just came off like, it's my turn. I get what I'm president now. Why are we? I remember she even kind of said at one point, why are we still doing this? Why am I still running against Bernie? Why don't you just give me this? So, yeah, I mean, it's if they go with Hillary again, or I've even heard that they're talking about Chelsea. Then you're going to look at the possibility of a second Trump administration. Then you're going to look at him getting 8 years.
Yeah, so let's see what happens. I'm not looking to find out 2020, but the fact that they're talking about Hillary Clinton again is like, come on, we've been through this now. She lost. End of story. Let some fresh blood. Yeah, like, come on. It's obvious that people don't trust her. And here's another thing is people don't want to see another legacy of someone else who took over. They already seen it with the Bushes. We had it with the Adams. We had it with the Hendersons. They don't want to go through that again. They want to see fresh new blood. Let somebody else give it a try, and let's go from there. I don't want to see the same old, because it tells me you really don't have no ideas if you keep doing that.
And that's what I mean. I remember a couple of years ago when this was all gearing up, and Time Magazine saying it's going to be Hillary and it's going to be Jeb Bush, and that's the way it is. It's going to be those two people. And I thought, if that's going to be who it is, I don't know that I'm going to go out and vote, because why would I vote for either of those people? And I think the country is tired of the same old people. That's why we got Trump. He was
Mm.
new. He was somebody different, and good or bad, that's what people wanted.
Is he the oldest? I thought Ronald Reagan was 71 when he came into office.
I think Reagan was 69, and so yeah.
69. Okay.
And
So
but
so Trump is
the other
actually
thing,
the oldest president we had. 70.
yeah, Trump also though. I mean, one of the few things I guess I could say about him that would be somewhat kind. Does not look 70. He looks, he looks fairly healthy and energetic and uh, youngish. Uh, Hillary came off as, I mean, you had Hillary collapsing that one time, and she came off as out of touch, and you know,
Well, we'll find out how much more we. Like we said, we got 3 more years of this. So this is to me technically Trump haven't done anything yet. So except
mm,
do executive orders. So and he probably may do more before he had to sign that first bill. So let's see what happens here. New York, my hometown, is facing a serious problem. Um, is a problem that's not going to go away for a lot of reasons that I will explain here, and it's probably something that I'm pretty sure Minnesota has been dealing with. New York is having a homeless crisis that is not getting any better. We had this has been getting worse, not just for one mayor, not just for two, but for 4 mayors now, going back from Dinkin to Giuliani, even to now De Blasio, and now they're trying to set some modest goals. I'm going to talk about this here, but it says here this is done by Jennifer Plass, very well journalist for the Associated Press. But it says here, filed in January 11, 2017, the homeless person sleeps under the blanket in New York sidewalks. This is something that is very common. Mayor Bill de Blasio plans to unveil a speech on the 28th, which is already passed, in a plan for 90 more homeless shelters in addition to the 200 in the city already has. The New York City has tried for years to solve one of the most stubborn and visible problems. Tens of thousands of homeless people a night packed into the shelters, and thousands of others camped out to sidewalks on the subways and in buses stations. Mayor De Blasio questions aloud whether the problem of homeless even can be solved, as he unveiled the latest proposal with a decidedly modest goal. His $300 million plan will open 90 new shelters in 5 years, ultimately shrinks the homeless population by 2,500, a mere 4%. Now, before I say that, I say, what's your say on this? As a person who don't live in New York and probably has something similar in Minnesota.
Minnesota, the homeless problem is not nearly as bad as, and I can't speak for California currently, but at least California, when I lived in California, when I was growing up in California, was really bad. You couldn't. I remember going to the library in downtown Long Beach. You couldn't get in because it was where all the homeless people congregated, and you literally just trying to get to the door of the library, you'd be mobbed by people with their hands out. And I mean, that was before, uh, we had a couple of wars where, we had veterans coming home who would end up homeless and not able to take care of themselves. Um, homeless, the homeless issue. I mean, that's one of those things where you just, I mean, again, under in my home state, when Ronald Reagan was governor, he cut support for the mentally ill, and that's when there was this giant explosion in the homeless in California. And that's really, for the most part, what you have to look at. I mean, the economy being the way it is, you are going to have the people who are out of work, but you're also got a lot of people who are vets who came home and can't get help, or you've got mentally ill people who can't get medication because they don't have health care. Until you take care of those issues, you're not going to solve the homeless problem.
And you
There's no fixing it until you
and,
solve those issues.
and you hit something that is 100% of the problem here and more in New York. New York had never tried to solve the homeless issue. They tried to ignore it. Bloomberg never tried to resolve the issues, and when it was brought at, he brushed it off. To the point where he came with a plan where anyone who lives in a homeless shelter and is working, because that's something I want to bring up to you, they have to pay rent.
Mhm.
Keep in mind, this is a shelter that's supposed to help you get out of the system, yet you're paying rent, basically keeping you in the system.
Mhm.
And the issue goes for it's more complex as I read into this. It's basically he's admitting saying that today I cannot see the end to the homeless shelter. He said this week, but I do believe we can do better. The Democrat mayor's latest plan is less about emptying shelter than improving conditions for the city's more than 60,000 homeless people. Some advocates for the homeless shelter give him credit for his approach, and they see as realistic. The problem is with the thing is, and look, there's a whole lot of issue here that this stems to. It's more of a moral thing as well. People don't want me to hear it, but sometimes we are also at fault because here's the thing. About a few months ago he proposed a new shelter in the air in the neighborhood of Queens, and people went out against this.
Hmm.
They said they're all for building shelters, just not in my neighborhood.
Mhm.
Where are you gonna put them at then? If it's not your neighborhood, then whose neighborhood then?
Yeah.
It's
Uh,
always being pushed back. It's like I want it, but I don't want to hear.
well, and
Uh,
that's the you mean you people who would like to send money to starving kids in Africa don't want to adopt a starving kid from Africa. They don't want the problem to be there, that they have to actually deal with, that they have to see it. They just want to, send their check or whatever, and not have to deal with it. And that's you're right. That's a more of a moral issue that's more difficult to address.
and it is something that the blogger said. He said, "Listen, we all got," and he said, and I give him respect for it. He said, "Look, we all got to deal with this situation. It's not just us, just the government, but we all have to pay a tribute to this." Another thing is that the problem is that here, and this is the grim reality. Um, People have a wrong exception that those who are in shelters or either coming out of parole, they're criminals, or just they're too lazy, they don't want to work. They don't take into consideration that there are a good portion of people who are in the shelters have a job that cannot afford the rent that has been going crazy high
Mhm.
in the city in the last 5 years. The real estate developers have gotten so greedy that they have actually have made it almost impossible for single forget about families, single people in general to get the apartment in this place. An average rent, if you want a one room, just one room can run you for $14,000 a month.
Yeah.
That's one room. I ain't saying nothing about room in the kitchen. I said one room.
When I
All right.
when I lived in one of the reasons I left California was, I was a single dad. I was raising a daughter. I had to get, a home where she could have her own bedroom. And I ended up, the only apartment I could find that I could afford was this rundown, hole in the wall, uh, that was in a neighborhood where literally people are shooting each other all night long. Um, and it cost me $1,200 a month. That was in 2006. So I have no idea what that same apartment now in 2017 would cost. But I got run out of Southern California. I couldn't afford it. there, when you live in some place like Southern California or New York where people want to live, they're going to have those prices, as high as they can get them to get just a room.
And this for the record, I pay 150 a week for my room, all right. And I'm dealing with social issues. Not that I'm not surprised by it, but 150 a week in a job, and my job pays minimum wage of 265.
Mm-hmm.
That's not including car fare.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you gotta. This is the struggle that us, people who are working people who wants to do the right thing is dealing with. So you imagine a mother with two children working two jobs, and she can't afford the rent in this city. What do you think is going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said, okay, he wants to build shelters, but here's the thing: is why don't you take some of these houses that are actually been abandoned or run down, to the point where nobody's living anymore, reconstruct them and make them affordable buildings. We don't have affordable living in this city, and that's been the issue here. Another issue: people need to stop with the stigma saying that oh, these people are lazy, they're this and that. They all have actual families living in these shelters.
Well, the idea
mothers.
that people are lazy. Nobody is lazy enough to be homeless. There is nobody who is lazy enough to be home. Nobody is sort of like, I could go and work, but I would much rather be hungry and cold. Nobody is that lazy.
And another thing also that I think that we need to understand is that there is a stigma, and I dealt with this, and I should know because I was in a shelter not for 3 months, not for 2 years, but for 4 years. A whole lot of issues with that. There is this idea that if you send them somewhere else, they'll find it. Let them find it out there. If the shelter is supposed to design to help people, in steps, or let me put it this way, assist people into getting back on their feet, they should have the resources to do it. I went to the shelter. Since I was very stunned and angry that a New York City shelter done by taxpayer money had no programs whatsoever, no assistance, no way to all they did is you got to go to social services, and they did the same thing that the shelter was doing. If there is no program, no educational program that will help them have a better shot, no kind of vocational programs of any kind, no kind of resources where they can go and find agencies that have connection to jobs and everything else, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to be caught in this loop.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're going to be caught in a cycle. And another thing that's been happening is that they look down, mostly with men, not with women. They seem to help women and children more than they help single men. But there is a stigma saying that they look down on men because of them, they're not trying hard enough.
Mm.
They don't take in consideration of, some people are coming from parole, whatever their crime is, they don't have the resources, and they need the resources to how to overcome their background. All right. 2, this is also very important. Whether you guys know it or not, alimony plays a very big factor of them staying in the shelter.
Oh, God.
I guess you know what I'm talking about.
Well, I luckily I got custody of my daughter, so I didn't have to deal with alimony. But just going through the court, let me tell you something too. I've gone through the family court system. You sit there with guys. When you're in that waiting room, and the waiting room outside of the courtroom, there's two sides to it. There's the side where the men sit and the side where the women sit. And you talk to those guys, and I would sit there and I would talk to them, and I would find out how they got here, and they would all say the same. None of them said, "Hey, I knocked her up, but I don't think I should have to pay," or none of that. You always got the guys who were saying, "You know what? She takes every dime I have. And then I can't afford to see my kids. So because I'm not doing the visitations, they feel I should be paying more in child support. And they take more money from me." And some of those guys, they were, one step away from homelessness, and they were in court with a lawyer that they couldn't afford, trying to keep from literally not being able to eat.
And that's the problem. People don't realize, those things. We had the one thing they made it very clear to us when we was in the shelter. They said, listen, if you got child support, you got to deal with. You might want to deal with it as soon as possible because if you because that's gonna keep you from getting an apartment. Because guess what? They're gonna take a lot of money from your check, and you're gonna need every chance you get, every amount you get, because you're required to save when you're in the shelter. That's fine. Kind of hard to save when your money's being gutted every time you go in there, and they always said you need to deal with that immediately. There's a reason for that, and these all play into the factors here. It's not like, oh, the person's slaves, he didn't want to do anything. Every person's situation is different, and yet the city, at least on the Bloomberg, I don't know how the Blazo is doing it now, but on the Bloomberg, it's like everybody's the same. All right, you got to treat everybody the same. Their situation the same. They got to go out there and find work. That's it.
Mm.
Well, wait a minute. How's that? How you know that person is qualified? This is a true horror story. When I hate going to public assistance for this reason, and I hate it more now than ever before. We had to go to a work experience program. Okay, fine. I can get some experience. I can put it on my resume. Couldn't even put it on my resume because the work experience program was not really work experience, but a babysitters club. Yeah. Going on the street and collecting garbage.
Mm.
I couldn't even use that. How am I use that in resume? I'm just picking up garbage on the street for 3 hours.
Well, right. I'll tell you. A couple years ago, I was trying to find work, and I was looking at a job program, and I didn't know what it was. I was just told, hey, why don't you try this place? Why don't you go here? So I went there, I show up, and first of all, the lady who's supposed to be running it, she shows up about an hour late, drunk.
Uh-huh.
And she gives us these tests. I didn't know what they were. They were literally like aptitude tests that I think I took when I was in second grade.
You took the test that you can get from high school.
No, not even high school. I would literally mean I think this was like second, third grade. I remember some of these questions.
You took the same thing I took when I was in that back to work program.
Yeah,
and I looked at the lady. I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You're giving me this? How is it going to help me?"
Exactly. And then I went to him and I said, "Hey, I got a kid that I'm trying to raise, and I got all these issues. What do I do about this? What do I do about that?" They had no answers for that. They just had, you're just going to have to figure that out, or you're going to have to do this, you're going to have to do that. And I lucked out, and was able to work from home, and I make a decent living doing what I do now. But man, if I had ended up just going with that, because I ended up walking out. I ended up saying, this is not, this is ridiculous. You're not giving me any kind of answers. You're giving me, if anything, more problems. And but yeah, the problem is this. The problem is right now, and we talked about this earlier with the tax cuts. Rich people want the tax cuts. Rich people want the rent in New York City to be as high as it is because they want New York City to be this paradise for the wealthy where only rich people live. But you know what? Who are going to be bussing the tables in their restaurants? Who's going to be the cab driver? Who's going to be the guy who sweeps the streets? If you don't pay people a living wage and make affordable housing in your city, you don't have anybody to actually prop you up and give you your little rich paradise that you want. So really, these people need to understand that if they want to keep going, they need the middle class. And that's the thing. They want us to destroy the middle class. Well, you get rid of the middle class and all you've got is the lower class. That's when you're going to see crime go back up. That's when you're going to see problems that used to exist in places like New York City. Crime is, as much as people like Trump like to talk about the crime rates, crime is actually lower than it has been in decades. But it's not going to be if you've got people who can't afford to live.
Exactly, and that's the biggest issue here, and that's why I brought the homeless situation, because it's always forever being talked about. And I feel, as a New Yorker, and as in general, you don't have to be a New Yorker to understand this. As you already shown, that there is an issue that you're not looking at. You're only looking at from one microscope. You're not looking at the whole picture. That is, a lot of people don't have the resource in this city. A lot of people who are working and working two jobs can't afford to live in this city, and thus can't even afford to move out. And you also have a situation where people have illnesses and mental issues that they don't have the resources to go there, or they don't have the money to go there. Thus, they're in the streets, and all the mostly a danger to themselves as well as others around them. All right, this is the year 2006-17. There are still people sleeping on the subway stations, and the only solution is get the cops to get them out of there. Listen, I understand why they're doing it, but you also understand that, hey, you know, there's almost no resources in the city dealing with the shelters. Or may I say, the shelters who have the resources or properly run shelters who seem to take more of the resources from their agency and give very limited resources to those who qualify versus the city shelter that pay the taxpayer monies who have none at all. And this is the issue. This is the problem. All right, building shelters is not going to solve your problem. Dealing with the overall economy, the cost of living, as well as the mental health of people, as well as their background, needs to be addressed before anything else. I'm think Bloomberg is. I'm sorry, Bloomberg. I actually got him out right in front of me in his name. I think De Blasio. I understand where he's coming from, but to me, that's just a band-aid. You need to solve it. You need to go head on to it. And if you have to take on people who just don't understand the seriousness of it, so be it. But this idea of just building more shelters, you can only build so many shelters until you realize, hey, you know what, you're building more shelters than you're building affordable housing.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, well, it's again, you either are gonna. It's like with all the immigration problem, all the other really a lot of the problems that we've talked about tonight are. It's a similar thing. You want to put a band-aid on it. You want to address, the issue in a superficial way, and you're not going to fix it. If you're not going to look at, and that's why I think one of the fundamental differences between somebody like Trump and somebody like Obama is that Trump has no capacity to understand the root cause of these issues. And he's only ever going to deal with he talks about terrorism. I mean, we talk a lot about terrorism in this country and about, why do the people in the Middle East hate us? Well, they hate us for our freedom. No, they hate us for a lot of reasons that we don't want to deal with. There's a lot of issues from our past and what we are doing currently that would give people in the Middle East a reason not to like us, a reason to resent us. And until you deal with those reasons, until you deal with those issues, if you just keep dropping bombs on them, they're never gonna. It's not like one day they're gonna go, okay, we surrender. What would that even look like if they did? We surrender. That's because you will always have young people springing up. Even if you break the older people, the younger people will be coming up and saying, we're not going to put up with this. And the homeless issue is an issue where if you just talk about it and like you said, well, just get the cops in there to move them out. Okay, well, then you're just moving them to somewhere else where those people are going to want them moved out. And you're just going to shuffle them around, and that's, it'll just keep going like that. And that's not an answer.
It says here, and an article continues on here. It says here that we have to stop promising New Yorkers that homelessness is going to end overnight, said Christine Quinn, a Democrat former city council speaker who ran the shelter operations, WIN, and ran against de Blasio in 2013. But others argue the city should focus more on helping people move out of shelters rather than opening more of them. People really at this point need permanent housing, and they're talking about keeping people in shelter systems, says Charmel Lucas, who is involved with the advocacy group Pictures of the Homeless and knows the needs firsthand. Lucas and his partner both freelance for delivering companies, have been in the city shelter since 2012. Superstorm Sandy displaced them, and in Suffolk City paid hotels stayed ends. They effort to get housing has hit roadblocks, she said. So the city instead paid thousands dollars a month. Citywide shelter unit averaging this is unbelievable. They're paying what I pay a week. They're paying a night, $150 a night for them to live in a shelter room with no kitchen and no shared bathroom.
Mhm.
Again, how's this helping?
I never, I always avoided being in a shelter, but I was in, I lived in a hotel when I was 19, 20 years old, um, where it was like a shelter. I mean, it was people who were out on parole, people who were, uh, who were basically one step away from being homeless, where there was no bathroom, there was no kitchen, there was no, I had a room and I had a sink. And um, when you stick people in something like that, getting out of it feels impossible. And if you're going to beat people down, if you're going to take away, again, if you're going to put people in a place where they don't even have access to a bathroom, then they get that feeling that, you know, I'm never going to get out of this. I'm never, and the a person's morale, once you lose that sense that you can do something, you know, and people, again, they like to say, well, they need to pick themselves up by their bootstraps. People who say that are people who have never been in that position, who have no
Exactly.
idea what they're talking about as far as um, the feeling of just powerlessness, and that you don't matter, you don't count. And until you empower somebody through education, through giving them a voice, through giving them an opportunity, until you empower somebody, their ability to pick themselves up by the bootstraps is not going to manifest itself.
hmm It says here in the continuing article, it says, um, the person said none of this makes sense. And you're right, you're paying $150 for a place that don't even have proper kitchen and bath. And this is a night, not a week. While homelessness have declined naturally in this decade, it has grown in such cities as in New York and Los Angeles. Reasons likely tied to rent surging ahead of income, like we just talked about earlier. New York City is legally obliged to provide shelter to any homeless person who seeks it, with eligibility rules for family and shelter population has jumped about 70% in a decade, hitting an unprecedented peak. Another 2,800 people were living in shelters at least one count last year, though advocacy groups have long believed the annual uh, census is low. Former Mayor Michael Bloomberg pledged unsuccessfully to reduce homelessness by two-thirds. De Blasio, who took office in 2014, had previously tried to approach that range from the shelter repair program a to daily street advocates that he said he will pursue nearly 700 people so far to so far to come into shelters. The blogger said his latest plan is bigger and stronger and better, and both homeless people and taxpayers. He said he also stresses that his administration is trying to help homeless people get permanent housing, including rental aid. He said has helped 51,000 people so far get to stay out of shelters. Now, sword here, and they actually had to pass a bill. I don't know how that was in Los Angeles with you or even Minnesota, but there was actually landlords turning down that voucher,
Hmm.
and they the reason is very simple. They want cash. They don't want nothing. They feel that if you have to get aid from the city, then you're not going to pay your rent on time. So they say they don't want to take it. They openly said that, and the mayor said no. If there's a voucher there and they don't offer it, you have to take it. The city's paying a good portion of that. But this is
Well,
part of the problem. That's
yeah,
this.
I mean, that's, see, I mean, and again, you hear from the right a lot in this country that, well, what is the answer? What is the answer to these problems? oh well, like, and they'll say, well, my church does a fundraiser, or my church does a charity. People will give. People will. No, they won't. No, they won't. People will not. People's open hearts and giving and charity is not going to fix that kind of a problem. What you have to do is you have to mandate by law, this is how we're going to fix this. And if you don't want a voucher, tough. You're going to have to take that voucher. And if we find out that you're not taking it, we will shut you down, or we'll fine you, or we will do something, and you will regret not taking that voucher. Until you do that, and then of course they're going to turn around and they're going to go, oh well, look how the government is infringing on my rights or whatever. But that's what we have government for. We have government to make sure that laws are followed, and whether it's taking a voucher, or baking a gay couple a cake, or whatever it is, or letting a black person sit down and eat lunch at a counter in whatever restaurant they want. That's what we have government and law for, is to protect people. And again, I mean, if you look at what Trump is doing to the trans community, it goes to show the difference between the hard right in this country and everybody else. These people don't care about how anybody is being treated other than their own group that they exist in.
And that's the thing, the bubble. Too many people living in this bubble feeling, as long as I have this bubble around me, nothing can harm me.
Mm-hmm.
Forget about the fact that what affects one affects the other. If I'm in this bubble, nothing can harm me. I'm good. And this is a situation in New York that's been dealing with. New York has been so hell bent on this booming condos and these multiplex apartments, that they forget the fact that, hey, there's a lot of people in New York that can't afford the rent, or the rent keeps going up because you keep building these luxury condos all over the place, and you're letting these real estate developers run amok without being saying, hey, you got to build some affordable houses too. So anytime when I see a condo run for $36 million in an area where that's not supposed to be a $36 million condo, that's a problem. It's a problem. And unfortunately, greed has become a very Achilles heel of New York. I love my city,
Yeah.
but let's be honest, it's not perfect, and this is one of them, and it's not getting any better. And so far, not one mayor has came up with an actual solution. I'm hoping he does. Keep in mind, all this is being talked to in an election year, and I always know too familiar how people say a lot of good stuff in an election year. When they get elected, that seems to disappear somehow. Hopefully, I'm wrong in this one. So,
Yeah.
well, this has been an interesting episode. Thank you again for showing up for this. It was a great pleasure. I hope you show up for some more.
Yeah, definitely.
You have normally I don't do promotional things here, but you are here. We both from Matic Expression. This is, after all, a Matic Expression podcast. You probably have some announcements for not only for people on YouTube, but at Matic Expression. This is your chance to say what you got to say before we head on out.
I do have a couple on a sort of broader Manic Expression site. We are in the closing couple weeks of our Indiegogo campaign to raise the funds to make the Manic Expression animated movie. So anybody who wants to be generous and give us what they can to, or even just help spread the word, you can find that if you go to Indiegogo and look up Manic Expression the movie, you'll find us. On a more selfish note, the second volume of my book will be coming out this month. The volume 1 is already available on Amazon. It's called Manic Expression, a collection. The second volume will be coming out this month. And I have already said that any money that I make from the book will go into making the animated movie. So if you don't want to donate directly to Indiegogo, buying a copy of my book will also go to funding the animated film.
All right. And as always, this is part of the Matic Expression production here by YouTube, Daily Motion, and anywhere else you can see video podcast streamings. across the World Wide Web. As always, if you guys have any news you want me to cover from up the week, please put it on my comment page or go to Matic Expression, look up my name, Jockoli77, put it on the dashboard. I will look it up, take consideration, and look towards it. There has been a story I want to keep out because, frankly, I don't know how true this is. I don't want to. I normally say for the entertainment roundup, me and Josh can have talked about it. I know people have wrong my feelings about it. If you want my honest opinion about the PewDiePie situation, here it is. I think Wall Street Journal should just mind their business and just stick with what they always do. Wall Street, they have no reason to attack PewDiePie. What happened was a dumb thing that he had done. He got fired from Disney. He, of course, regretted it. But you know what? This is new media. Nobody was in the right. He took a joke too far. That's all I got to say about that. As far as Wall Street concerned, I don't know why they making comments trying to slam the guy when there were a lot of people who did so much worse than he did. So there it is. That's my feeling on that. I don't know if you heard about the PewDiePie situation or not, James, but if you don't worry about it.
Yeah, I heard about it enough to not care.
All right. And as always, until next time, this is Jason and Sam say be safe and see you next time.